I'm Dr. Nazanin Moali, licensed clinical psychologist, sex therapist, and host of Sexology Podcast. This week, we're going to talk about fingering and how to touch your lover's vulva. Our guest today is Searah Deysach. Searah is a sex educator and the founder of Early to Bed. She has taught many workshops around teaching people to become a better lover. And in this episode, we're going to talk about advanced stroking, positions, everything you want to know if this is something that you're interested to incorporate in your lovemaking sessions. Before we go into the episode, I want to make sure you are subscribing to our channel because every single week we are teaching you one new skill that will help you to become better in bed. And I don't want to miss it. So make sure you are following us here and in your favorite Apple Podcast. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Sexology Podcast. It's my honor to welcome back Searah Deysach. Searah, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
We love the conversation we had about solo play for vulva owners. And now we're focusing if we are doing things with our lovers. So if our lover want to explore our vulvas, or if you want to kind of like do mutual exploration, this is the episode for that. If you want to explore that, kind of like touching our partner's vulva as a main act, how should we start when we want to do kind of build the environment?
Well, I think that a great way to start is with some full body exploration. I think that, going from hello to touching someone's vulva right away is maybe a little abrupt under most circumstances. And also, I am such a fan of building anticipation. I talk about this a lot, but like make it so that by the time you're actually touching somebody's vulva, they're like really eager for it. They're really wanting it. So I think full body touching, either like some silicone lube on your fingers, which can slide apart any part of your body, or some massage oil that's also vulva safe, is a great way to kind of relax people, get touched and tuned into what's going on. And then I think as you move towards wanting to touch the actual genitals, inner thighs, butt, your buttocks, all these places that are kind of around the vulva, but aren't the vulva, I think is delightful to touch. And using light touch, using long strokes, obviously you want to check in with your partner and see what they like and what's working for them. But I think that slowing things down is something we don't do enough when it comes to sex. And I think that this is a great opportunity to kind of set the mood, slow it down, touch all those delicious parts of the body before you like go for the good stuff. I mean, it's all good stuff,
that. Well, delicious and more delicious.
Yes.
I guess
right, delicious,
it. So I think one of the misunderstanding that people at times have is that I know for some of or many of my clients that are penis owners, they love their penis getting touched. And if you're touching it from the beginning, that's not an issue at all. At times it's encouraged. But it's my experience for vulva owners that they like the other parts to get explored first, even if that is something that your partner is interested in. I love that you're talking about start exploring, massaging different parts. It could be even teasing could be part of it. So I think it's important to build anticipation and excitement before moving into exploring the genital.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that we don't, part of it is physiology. I think part of it's also just the way that we're socialized to think about sex and about who likes to be touched in what way. And I think that you're also talking about, population of people, vulva owners who often don't have a lot of experience touching their whole vulva. And so I think there's not the same idea about it as there are with penises, which are kind of hanging out there ready to be touched at any time. And I think that it is also good just for everybody, regardless of your body, to remember that there's so much more to us than our genitals, and that all parts of our bodies can feel really good to be touched. Not all parts, lots of parts of our bodies can feel really good to be touched, and different types of touch can be stimulating in ways you never even anticipate. Sometimes who knew the inside of your arm was so erotic? You don't know until someone tries or until you try. So I think it's good for all of us to remember that our skin is everywhere.
Absolutely. And you were talking about maybe not all, but I bet that like in a whole population of world, if you're surveying, every single inch is erotically charged for someone.
Right. Oh, yes.
People are interested in so many different things, and but there are areas that are more popularized, or more people are interested in. And some people think about, okay, so clitoris is very exciting and hot. Let's just go for it. For most people, they think like if you're touching someone's clits like too soon, that can be a huge turnoff. So I love that you're talking about exploring different parts of body and building excitement. So I think that's really important. So tell us, so if we are slowing down, so how long do you recommend people exploring different parts of the body? The reason I say that, and I know me and you, we know that how a clit is like male anatomy. It requires arousal, blood flow in order to be at the optimal place for touch. And sometimes people think that that's not the case, and they kind of like too quickly transition to that, and the body is not ready. So how long do you recommend on average people to explore other parts of the body?
That's a hard question, but definitely. So, and I think it's really interesting to just have to go back to the arousal thing real quick, because we can see a penis that's erect, right? And unless you're really getting in there on the vulva, you're not going to see that the clitoris is erect. And so I think that, and some people don't even know that that's a physiological thing that happens. I mean, I didn't learn that in school, like no one taught me that. And so I think that just knowing that that's part of what's happening and part of what's going to make things better, I think is a really good place to start. Obviously, we all have different time frames for what we have put aside for sex, but I would say like at least a 10 to 15 minute warm up time for most people is going to be really helpful. Unless you're kind of like something happened, you guys are both coming at this from like already up in aroused, you saw a really hot movie together, you've been flirting all night, whatever it is. But I think if you're kind of starting from scratch, at least 10 to 15 minutes is a great opportunity to kind of really get the juices flowing, so to speak, get arousal started. And it also, communication is really important. Check in with your partner. Make sure that when the time comes to touch their body, that they're ready for it or they're looking for it. And if you are ready for someone to touch your body, you can tell them that. It's an okay and good thing to say, please touch me now. Please touch me here. Like I'm ready or whatever. And I think that we have to get more comfortable being verbal and being communicative during sex in order to have the best sex that we possibly can.
Absolutely. And again, you can even use your body language. The more direct you are, of course, the better it is. I know so many people are shy about these things, and you can gently move the hand of your lover that kind of like guide them down there. And even at times, I guess more ninja skill is like to show them what you like. But I know for so many people that feels like more too advanced and too vulnerable. So now if we're ready to move to touching our lover's vulva, are we starting from over the clothing or under the clothing?
Oh, if your clothes are still on, it's really hot, I think, to start over the clothing. I think kind of just cupping the area with your whole hand, providing some sort of light pressure, and then maybe like using the palm of your hands. I think fingers are great because they're very sensitive and you can feel a lot what's going on. But I think we underestimate what the rest of our hand does, because it can provide more broad pleasure. It can provide sort of like this warm hug, for lack of a better word. Hugging the vulva with your hand can just feel really nice, and moving around in little tiny circles with, clothes on or clothes off. I also think for some people, especially if you're down to your underwear, the act of like having to move your underwear aside to have access, that's just that little bit of action can be really arousing. Like moving the underwear over a little to kind of like stroke the inside thigh, or something that is like, oh, I'm going to go in under your underwear, but then just, you don't quite do it. You kind of just tease a little bit. I think that too can really like send shivers down somebody's spine or get them excited. So I think that there's no reason not to start outside of the clothes. And then once the clothes are off, I think, again, don't just dive right in. Again, use your full hand, make sure that you have either lube on your hands or something that is going to be nice and slippery, so that when you're touching your partner's body, you're not dragging and creating too much of friction. That to me, I think is really important. I think as a lot of people find that they will say like, oh, I don't like, hand touch because it's uncomfortable, when they've never just had smooth gliding hand touch.
Absolutely. And I love this emphasis on lube because there's just so many stigmas around that. Like if you're aroused, you must be dripping, all of that BS that is
Yes.
like just BS. I think everyone can benefit from adding more lube. I think that's unless your lover is saying, I have enough, then that I think like you want to have more, which is good.
I think, there's almost nothing lube can't solve. Yeah, no, I think it's like the best addition to any sex.
Yes, and you can go longer, explore different things, and it's just a different sensation at times that kind of add excitement to the partner play. Well, if we are we're exploring other parts of the body, like other parts of the genital, and then we want to eventually kind of like slowly move to our clit. What are some of the strokes that you feel like it's helpful for building excitation and building arousal, like when we're touching the clit?
Well, I think, when you're touching the clitoris, it's good to think about it. Again, where you're not just want to go right to the exposed glands right away. The hood on the clitoris is there, to kind of protect the person from too much stimulation. If the clit's aroused, the hood might be pulled back a little bit. But I think that starting on the sides, there's kind of a 3-finger technique where you would have, one finger brushing on the other side of the clitoris, where the top finger is maybe like a lighter sensation, just kind of maybe on the clitoral hood, or maybe right above the clitoris. So like the part that you're seeing, putting a little pressure right at the top can feel really good. Everybody's body is different. Some people like it on one side rather than the other side. Some people like pressure that comes right from the top, but some people like pressure that comes from the side. So if you're not in a place where you're really verbalizing, your partner's not able to really verbalize, hopefully there'll be some, like auditory clues, like, ooh, that feels good. Or, or like, ooh, ouch. It's a really good one to look out for. But also ask your partner, does this feel good? Does this feel better? Sort of check in with them. But I think that listening to you can't really listen to nonverbal cues, but paying attention to nonverbal cues, checking in with your partner, watching their face, watching their body, I think will give you a good sense too of if something's good or something's not. And if you're the person whose body it is, use your body. If you're not able to use you don't feel comfortable verbalizing, find ways to make sure you can lean into touch. You can pull away from touch, and that will help your partner.
So helpful. And at times I have female clients in my vulva owners in my practice that they are telling me that, I wish like all night I was thinking, I wish he was like touching this other part. And we're kind of like magically want to communicate that with them without talking or kind of like being kind of like direct about it. And I think it's just so helpful if we build that language or build some kind of like communicating what feels good with our lover, because I feel like it's a dance. And so like our bodies are very different. And even if your partner have like so many different lovers and they're great lovers, your body is different. So that's helpful to communicate with them. Should we build up the speed? Is that something we're doing when we're exploring vulva? Like if our partner is building to climax?
For most people, yeah. Eventually you're going to want to build that speed. And so I think pacing is really important, both for in the sense that you want to pay attention to what pace your partner is looking for, but also if you're the person who's providing the stimulation, you don't want to have to give up at the right moment. And so I think pacing your body in what your body's doing. So if you're using your hands, you want to make sure you're not going to get a cramp in your wrist or injure yourself in any way if you have to go for a long time. So switching up, being able to use both hands, I think is really helpful, and switching up the way that you're in positioned or holding. And then I think, again, like listening to your partner. And then for most people who have a clitoris, I think that they're going to find that the actual time of, orgasm is going to be when the action gets faster. So you are going to be speeding up. You are going to be going faster. But, it's a spectrum, and there's going to be people who want like hard and fast. And there's going to be people who want it to be, soft and fast or soft and slow or whatever it is. But in general, yeah, you're going to probably move your pace up. But sometimes you might start that and your partner might want you to slow down. So you can just, again, check in with them or be verbal in what you want or don't want. But, the sort of typical crescendo would be warming up, speeding up, hitting that mark, and then recovering. And I do want to say, like, I don't know if we're there yet in the conversation, but when after someone's had an orgasm, I think a really nice thing to do is to not just like pull your hand away, even unless they like bat your hand away because they want, they're done. But I think going back to where you started, like if someone has an orgasm, then going back to cupping their vulva, hugging their vulva with your hand, I think is a really nice way to kind of help somebody sort of ride out their orgasm, to kind of prolong the warmth, the sensation, the great feeling that it has. And so that you kind of it's like aftercare, taking care of them through the end of the orgasm and settling into the post-coital glow.
Oh, I love that. I didn't even think about it, but it warmed my heart as we were talking about helping with the landing. And one thing at times I tell my clients that unless, like, if you are a giver, unless your partner like shows you some signal that they're done, like if you can, don't stop it. Because like I have so many conversations with couples that but their giver assume that the partner were done. They're not done. And that's just not a good feeling.
Well, especially because, there are lots of people who have vaginas and vulvas who can keep going, and you can have multiple orgasms, or you can have a little orgasm and then you're kind of looking for a second one that's a little bit bigger, whatever. And yeah, you're right. It's not always one and done, and it's not always over when you think it's over. And that's why too, I think that like keeping your body in a position where you can keep going is really important. And also to realize the minute you start hearing things like, yes, 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 or that's it. Don't stop what you're doing. Whatever you do, unless there's a fire, keep going until you can kind of tell you've, gone to the other side.
Amen, Searah. So many great tips. And I actually appreciate you brought up the aftercare after the kind of climax experience, because I feel that's the time that many people go wrong. Like you work so hard to helping you and your partner have this experience. And the moment they climax, I have people like leaving or kind of like couple minutes, kind of like sitting there awkwardly and leaving. But you want to, if you put in work, if you guys had this experience, it's good to spend time with your partner a little bit before leaving, unless that is something that clearly communicated between you two.
Or you have to get to, your reservation for dinner or something. But yeah, I think that, but I just think it's something we don't think about a lot for anybody, regardless of what the sex activity you're doing is. I think that hanging out, I think of it as hanging out, like hang out in that area for a little while. And sometimes maybe things will start over again. And sometimes maybe you're just having a nice little, hangout time. But I think that that's a good way to kind of sort of deepen the connection and also just make the sex more heartwarming and cuddly and fun.
I think the other thing that is really important that I hear from my clients that's where some people go wrong is they start touching places that was not necessarily clearly communicated. I was okay. They think, okay, I like someone kind of like touching my butt during a kind of hand stimulation, and my partner would love that, and that could be a turnoff for people, or like touching areas that they're not into. So if you are wanting to do something new, then make sure and it goes with all behaviors, that like you make sure you have a consent is something that your partner is into it, or build up slowly to it and have kind of like look for your partner's cue. So if you want to add some toys, I know we talked about some toys in the previous conversation. What are some of the toys that can add excitement, but they're not the main event?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots. So especially if you're talking about using hands, I think there's definitely, there are vibrators that can be used on your fingertip that you can kind of integrate into whatever you're doing with your hands already. There are some vibrators too that, this is what I really love, is there's one or a couple that you can sort of fit in between your fingers so that your fingers kind of vibrate, but you're not putting the vibrator against them. You can, but the idea is that you can use your fingers and then they just have a little bit more sensation. But this is also an opportunity, again, to explore things like lubricants, to explore massage oils, to explore sensation toys too. You might find that like a feather could be a really interesting tickling kind of warm up toy, or some other kind of sensation toy. So there's kind of a lot of options. My go-to is always vibrators, but I understand that's not everybody's thing that they love. We're also, what's interesting, we're seeing more toys now that are designed for external like vulval stimulation, but that are not vibrators. Like there's these, just like these cool little, like, they're basically stimulators that are little pads that feel good rubbed on the body. So it's a different sensation, but it's not like a whole vibrator sensation. So those can also be really fun. So tons of options, and every day there's a new option that you can find somewhere. So it's endless.
That's wonderful. And even a little bit of light temperature play. We don't want to do something like extremely hot or cold without your consent. Maybe you can change temperature of your hand with a little bit of ice, or it could be kind of like a warm lube. All of that can add additional sensation. Searah, I love this conversation, and I love all the expertise you brought into our sessions and conversations together. So if our listeners are interested to learn more about you, what are some of the places that they can get a hold of you?
Well, our website is Early to Bed, which is early, the number 2, and then bed.com. And that's where you're going to find all of our toys and accessories, as well as lots of great information about sex. We have lots of articles about sex toys, but also just about some sex techniques. We're on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is really cute and has a lot of good info on it. And then, of course, we have a store in front in Chicago, and you can come visit in person, or you can always call our staff or email. We're there to help people find things to make their lives have better sex. And so we're really happy to walk people through our collection, answer questions, and do everything we can to help everybody just be having amazing orgasms. So
wonderful. Like you're making the world a better place.
Trying.
One orgasm at a time.
One orgasm at a time. Or 3 at a time.
Yes. The more the merrier.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you found our conversation meaningful and you got some great ideas on how to improve things in the bedroom next time with your lover. If you are interested to improve your lovemaking, make sure you are downloading our free checklist of the 9 of my favorite foreplay ideas that I share with my own clients in my private practice. The link to download the idea is below this video. And after using it, email me and let me know what you think. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next week here.